one of my coaching designations is in positive coaching. So I tend to look at it from the positive point of view, which is that we have strong, higher and lesser strengths, but we don't have to think of them as weaknesses. So do you want to talk about strengths for a few minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Or do you want them? Yep. So what I follow, there are all kinds of models for strengths. And I follow the VIA character strengths model. It was put together by a guy at University of Pennsylvania who is considered the father of positive psychology. It's easy, relatively easy to use, and you can get your strengths online free. There are lots of others. It's not free. It's not as easy to understand. So that's what I follow. So they say there are 24 main strengths. So what I have all my coaching clients do is they take a quiz to find out what their upper and lower strengths are.
Okay.
And then we talk a little bit about how to use them, what difference does it make if you use them. And I think this is the hardest thing for people to get their minds around, because I don't think we think about it very often. Like if we had to stop and think, what are your top 5 strengths? We very seldom can really name them. And so it takes a little while to get people used to using them. And what happens over the course of a coaching process, and it's at least 6 sessions, so I see them at least 6 times. Most people renew. They'll be talking away, and I will pull up their strengths profile and say to them, look at this. And I say, you know, what's interesting is sometimes or often, the biggest problem is not that people aren't using their strengths or that they aren't fixing a weakness. It's that they are overusing a strength. It's too much of a good thing.
Okay. Okay. I would need some more. I'm behind the idea that if you're strong at something and weak at something else, it might be a good idea to just lean on your strengths instead of bringing up your weakness. When does it become too much of a good thing?
Well, I can give you some examples of it.
Yeah, please.
Actually, one of the very first stories I tell in the book is about, he was one of my favorite coaching clients because he got it so fast. So he was one where his manager sent him to see me because he was constantly shooting himself in the foot by saying things that weren't appropriate, that annoyed other people. He had a big, one of our, kickoffs, whole company there, and he's kind of shot off his mouth, they said, and we just can't make him stop it. So I spoke to him, and within a very short period of time, I thought that he was overusing bravery. Okay. You have to be brave to speak the truth to power. You have to be wise to speak it well at the right time. So we talked to him about that, and I told him it's a great thing. And he also was pretty low on self-control. And so he did need to boost that one. Like, you don't have to say everything that goes across your mind does not have to come out right now. But what I talked to him about I was saying, you would never be a victim of groupthink. Groupthink was the reason the Challenger failed and they had that big explosion. And groupthink is when there is one charismatic or powerful person in the group and nobody wants to counter them.
Right.
Well, this guy, Rob, he would counter anybody. And the thing that he got in trouble for, he had good reason for thinking that they shouldn't be doing it. That's what he was doing. But, a big company meeting, excuse me, I think you're all wrong. He was too brave and not taking enough caution. He wasn't cautious enough. Okay. We talked about that. You know what I think helps? I think it helps when you're being told it's not that you're weak, it's that you're being too strong in one area. So that was bravery. Here's one that happens all the time. People will say, well, I'm thinking about leaving the company, so I feel it's only right that I tell my manager I'm thinking about it. And I say, so, if they're in the back room thinking about laying you off, do you think they're going to give you a heads up? Probably not.
No.
But besides that, there is a time when you want to let them know, or there will be circumstances when you want to let them know. And not that long ago, somebody was saying this to me, and while he was talking, I pulled up his strengths profile and I said, as I thought, fairness is in your top 3. He was overusing fairness. That will make him a great person. To know where it also isn't good is when you're trying to make a sale and you say, well, I don't want to push them too hard. I want to be fair to the buyer, which of course we want to be. But I don't want them to get in trouble. I don't want them to have a hard time. I want to be fair to them. And they're just overusing fairness. You take all of your strengths and use them optimally. So overusing fairness is common. Overusing bravery is common.
It's funny you say that, because I've never heard of someone doing that. Right. And then someone messaged me, is like, hey, I want to go into sales. I'm going to tell my boss tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my boss today, like in a couple hours. And by the time I saw the message, I'm like, no, wait, don't do that. Secure a job. See if there's.
Yes.
And they had already told them. And within hours, they said, oh, my boss is looking for a replacement now. Because
of course
he didn't move. Like, there was no opening. There's a difference between, like, hey, I show an interest, like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe in the future I'd like to try sales, versus I want to move into sales now. Like, one is asking for help for the future, and one say like, hey, I want to move now, and bam.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it, and now you're basically like, the secret is out in the open.
Yes.
So
okay. Yeah, and there are a number of them. I myself have a very strong love of learning. That is one of the character strengths. I love the process of learning. I almost missed signing on because I was learning how to do something new on a video. I don't need to know that. But if I get stressed, like say I was prepping a demo in the olden days when I did, if I was getting stressed about being able to do it, I might discover that I just spent an hour and a half learning how to use a new PowerPoint technique. Really? Because my comfort zone is the learning process. I was overusing my strength, love of learning.
All right. So you just mentioned, yeah, strength is love of learning, and you always ask your clients or you find out their top 5 strengths.
Yeah.
If you were to list yours, do you know what they are, and what would they be?
They would be wisdom, love of learning, perspective, and I forget what I focus on the top 3. I'll have to look them up. But what I love about them is I sincerely did this test several times. Those are great things for coaching. So what happened was, I believe I followed my strengths and ended up in something that I really enjoyed, the hands-on sales engineering as well. And I absolutely love the coaching, and it totally matches my top strengths. So I find it hard to get people to focus on strengths, maybe because it's just something that we don't do very often. And you really need to either talk to somebody or read about it a little bit to understand it. But that's the other part of it, is if you can go with your strengths, you're going to be a happier person. And if a pre-sales manager could let the people doing demos, or say the sales team, let the people doing demos go with their strengths, the demos won't all be the same. They'll all be good.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not just the demos. I get, because I've done both. A lot of salespeople come to me and tell me like, this SE is not doing what I want them to do.
Yeah. And
then we have a conversation about it, and we find out that this SE strength is the total opposite of what you're asking them to do. Like, when we discuss sales engineering, we think, hey, they help with the pre-sales, they do help us with the discovery and all that. Yeah. But a lot of SEs, especially in the world that I work in, are hired for their technical skills and their support skills. So they're hired for that, but they're expected to do this. And now that could be your book, like what you're talking about in your next book, what salespeople want from SEs.
Yes.
They want them to be mini salespeople.
Yes.
Right. But SEs don't want, like, if they wanted to be mini salespeople, they would have been salespeople.